is President Biden's America. Illegal immigrants trampling all over our nation's sovereignty. And in a stunning reversal of course, President Biden is about to do something he told his voters he would never do. He's doing exactly what Donald Trump knew would work. Build that wall. I'm Harris Faulkner. You were in the Faulkner Focus. The Biden administration is now saying a border wall is needed immediately. It's lifting more than 24 federal laws to build 20 miles of border wall in Texas. Let this statistic sink in. More than 250,000 illegal immigrants in the last fiscal year. That's a record. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, who will be in Mexico City today, along with Attorney General Garland for high-level talks, says the need for the new barrier is acute and immediate. The move is completely a 180 from what Biden said when he was a presidential candidate.
Has taken
there will not be another foot of wall constructed in my administration. I'm going to make sure that we have border protection, but it's going to be based on making sure that we use high-tech capacity to deal with it.
He must have really failed to have to eat that crow. A political calculus could be at play with that wall reversal. Look at the polls. Many of them showing voters believe the president is doing a dismal job when it comes to the border. The White House is still working to shift blame.
The president has taken action when it comes to delivering funding, record funding for the border security. The most extreme House Republicans have sought to eliminate thousands of Border Patrol folks. The president has continued to try to put forth actions and ways to deal with what we're seeing at the border, and Republicans continue to block us. The president is going to continue to do everything that he can to deal with what's going on. House Republicans want to take away law enforcement at the border.
Somebody else needs to do that job now, because none of that was true. In focus, Republican Congresswoman Cammack of Florida, who has seen the chaos at the border firsthand. First, though, let's go to Jeff Paul in Eagle Pass, Texas. Jeff.
Yeah, Harris, I can tell you when you're out here along the border and you see one of these large groups cross into the U.S. like we did yesterday of about 300 people, it could be a bit overwhelming, but then you realize this is just a small snapshot of the thousands who make that journey across the border into the U.S. on a daily basis. And that is in part why the Biden administration is now going to waive 26 federal laws to resume border construction it had previously stopped. Now, that was back in January of 2021. The Biden administration at the time called a massive border wall, quote, not a serious policy solution. But now, roughly 20 miles are going to be constructed in the Rio Grande Valley in South Texas. We should note the Trump administration built around 450 miles of barriers along the southern border between 2017 and 2021. Now, environmental groups are opposed to the new construction, saying it'll impact ecosystems and wildlife in that very area. But when you talk with folks who call the Rio Grande Valley home and have been dealing with the flow of migrants and crossings for years, they have long been frustrated that politicians on both sides haven't done more.
They have abandoned their elected duties. And the American people need to remind them what their duty is. And that's to the American people, to keep our country safe first and foremost. That will fix the issues, the crisis we're seeing here at the southern border, plain and simple.
Now, this is new video emerging this morning from the Mexican side of the border, just across from El Paso, it appears. This is a crowd of migrants and their reaction to just arriving on that side of the U.S.-Mexico border. We have reached out to CBP and are waiting their response regarding the situation there. And we're also, Harris, tracking a hearing that's taking place right now surrounding the legality of those river buoys that Texas Governor Greg Abbott had installed right here in Eagle Pass. Harris?
Oh, that is fascinating. And by the way, the state had to spend so much money because, you know, there were lawsuits flying and all sorts of things with the federal government going after that state. Are they going to get reimbursed for all of that? We would hope so. Texas should be reimbursed for a lot of things that they've had to do. All right, we'll move. Biden building miles of border wall is especially shocking given the repetitive drumbeat
We have a process in place to manage migrants at the border.
The border is secure, but we also have a broken immigration system.
The fact of the matter is the border is closed.
It is my testimony that the border is secure.
The United States will continue to enforce our laws and secure our border.
The president has done more to secure the border and to deal with this issue of immigration than anybody else.
I want to be very clear. Our borders are not open.
Republican Congresswoman Cammack of Florida, a member of the House Homeland Security and Agricultural Committees. Look, when you listen to us rolling back the tape, those were lies. And there's no other way to put it, because you couldn't just flip a switch and get what we have like 5 minutes ago.
No, Harris, it's good to see you. And no, that is absolutely a lie. For the last 3 years, we have seen Biden and all of his administration officials tout the line that the border is secure. I've been there myself 9 times, and I have seen the trafficking. I have seen the national security crisis. I have seen the apprehension of international terrorists on the watch list as people are saying, oh, no, it's totally fine. It's not. This has turned every single town in America into a border town, and it is directly Joe Biden's fault from his lack of action. And then to lie on top of it, well, that's just unacceptable.
Well, and your governor, DeSantis, in Florida, really got their attention when he sent, like 50 illegal immigrants who'd come across the border up to Martha's Vineyard, the precious country of elites, of those liberals who just loved to party there. It got their attention, but it didn't change their policy. It didn't change until those cities were crippled by what the border deals with every day. You're so right about that. All right, let's get to this. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about New York City Mayor Eric Adams. He started his day in Mexico City, the first leg of a 4-day stop in Central and South America. And the goal, he says, is convincing people not to come to New York City. Now, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson is planning a trip of his own. Oh, my goodness, they're all going to go to the border? Can't they take the president with them? The influx of illegal immigrants is causing chaos in his city as well. Watch.
Assess the full situation, and that also requires our team to be at the border.
I've heard that the goal is to convince migrants not to come to Chicago during winter time. Is that true?
No.
Thousands of illegal immigrants have been sleeping in Chicago police stations and at airports as they wait to be placed inside shelters. The number of people bussed in from the southern border is expected to double. And by the way, that is courtesy of the federal government. We'll get into that in a moment. Residents furious that precious resources now are not going to them, and they are angry over their tax dollars being spent this way.
I want Mayor Brandon Johnson to understand that you're selling us out for people who can't vote for you. Yeah, we come in a community of black people where we already get the low scraps. And then you want to take the little scraps, the resources that we have, and put us at the bottom of the barrel? That's not fair, and I won't have it.
Ooh, Congresswoman, there's a lot to react to.
Yes, Harris. I kind of feel like John McClane in the greatest Christmas movie of all time, Die Hard. Welcome to the party, pal. We have been saying for years that the border is insecure, that the Biden border crisis has turned every town in America into a border community. And guess what? It has. And now this administration and blue states and blue cities all across America are going to pay the price. And so now we get 20 miles of border. By the way, they have to violate 26 federal laws to do that, but the law has never really mattered to them. And I think part of the thing that needs to happen for all these blue cities and all these blue states, and certainly the White House, they got to admit they were wrong. The first step to fixing a problem is admitting you were wrong, and we know that Trump derangement syndrome is exceptionally alive and well at the White House right now. So they need to first admit that Trump was right, they were wrong, that the border wall is effective, it is a force multiplier, that technology is helping in pushing back against the illegals coming across the border. And guess what? Putting America first works. That is why people are so mad.
That's especially important for the people who voted for Biden. It's important for people to know the truth. I don't know how many of them might be watching Fox and can see all of our coverage from stem to stern. But for it to come from the White House would be critical. I won't hold my breath. I'm guessing you won't either. But when you flip the previous president's policies into effect again and start to build a wall, that's sufficient for a short-term start. A lot of critics are pointing to the free resources provided to certain illegals. Select state and local governments are providing housing and cash assistance, education, healthcare, food, and legal support. And on the federal level, assistance of all sorts is available to select immigrants with qualified status. Here's a scroll of those including Medicaid and Social Security. And while we scroll, Congresswoman, talk to me about fairness.
Listen, the United States is the most generous nation on this planet. We are the most compassionate people in the world. And I agree that there is absolutely a system in place to help people, but it has been exploited, it has been abused, and now it is broken. And Americans are paying the price. We are being taken advantage of, and that has to change. If you continue to put Americans last, you will have no one to take care of folks who need help. You will not have a system that is well funded to do this. And we have our own people here at home, our veterans who are being pushed out and onto the streets. We have working class families that pay their taxes, that do everything right, and they're being punished by the Biden administration because the Biden administration wants to, and we know this, they want to make sure that you don't have to have an ID to vote and you don't have to be a citizen to vote. And they will do anything to keep power here in this city. They will do anything to maintain control. That is why they want to grow the government. They are entirely reliant on this agenda of dependency and control. And Harris, when you think about it, and you and I have talked about this, when you think about that, all they want to do is keep people dependent on big government programs so that they maintain control, and fixing the problem means that they lose leverage. By persisting the problems, they stay in power. Solutions, they lose leverage. That is why fixing the border is so critical. It's not just national security. It's not just the humanitarian thing to do. It's not just about putting Americans first. It is about breaking the system that is keeping Americans down. It is about breaking the system that is keeping everyone beholden to big government, and the draining of the swamp is absolutely what we need to be focused on.
Congresswoman Cammack, thank you very much for being with me in Focus for all of those important reasons. People in the nation's capital are facing massive spikes in crime. So you've got the situation going on at the border, and now you layer on, and you can kind of understand with great detail what the Congresswoman was warning about. Life-changing here in America. The crisis hurting everybody from store owners to members of Congress. Dramatic new images of that crime out of control. And it's back. President Biden's latest move to revive a massive government handout in student debt forgiveness. Republicans are calling him out on it.
It's not only unlawful, it is unfair. You look at what it's doing. This is not a forgiveness. This is a transfer of debt from one person to another. It's transferring it to hard-working Americans.
It's almost like a sleight of hand. So they slide that money in, but then they say they'll build 20 miles of the border. It's so interesting. There's so many porous, troubling spots in this administration, and they're going to try to plug the hole by paying some people through their debt. Critics say it's all about shoring up that critical voting bloc, the youngest among us, at the expense of others. Jason Chaffetz in Focus next.
Hello, folks, and welcome to Kudlow. I'm Larry Kudlow. For sure, most sane people wish the Speaker McCarthy thing must vacate episode didn't happen. Most sane people know that the 8 votes to remove Mr. McCarthy were from insurrectionists, or as Mark Levin said it last night on the show, anarchists, or as the Wall Street Journal called them, modern performing artists. Because there was no substance to their complaint, they generated a national kabuki theater for about 48 hours. And it is a sad tale, but Kevin McCarthy showed everyone what a class act he is. He did the right things. In my view, he's going to heaven. Now, having said all that, what's done is done, and it's time to move on. The liberal media is just piling on that Republicans can't govern, they're cutting off their own heads, the House has become a clown show. All this stuff is simply not true. Look at the GOP House members have a terrific opportunity to show the world that, in fact, they can govern. They can keep it together. they will elect a new speaker from a crop of superbly qualified conservative House leaders. And the next speaker will insist on changing the rule to vacate. And then the GOP will finish the appropriations job, complete the regular budget order for the remaining 8 funding bills. They've already covered 80% of the total spending package. Then they'll send these bills over to the Senate. Here's the rub. The Chuck Schumer Senate has completed 0 appropriation bills. 0. We're going to ask Senator Rand Paul about this later in the show. But if there's another shutdown after November 17th, it will be the Schumer-led Democratic senators who are to blame. And the next Republican speaker should make this funding point absolutely clear. The Republican House will do its job, and so far the Democratic Senate is flunking the test. And then the GOP should hang tough on measures such as their H.R. 2 bill to close the border, and also make it very clear that any additional Ukraine funding must be accompanied by instructions to seek a diplomatic outcome. This is something the Biden-Schumer Democrats have completely failed to do or even propose. And it's the Biden-Schumer war right now, and the GOP can seize the high ground with diplomatic instructions. And then, let's not forget, the House Republicans passed an excellent energy bill, H.R. 1, which was actually unveiled on this show, which would reopen the fossil fuel spigots and bring back the Trump permitting reforms. Plus, the House Republicans passed a very good parental rights bill. Republican leaders should be emphasizing these accomplishments that occurred under Kevin McCarthy's speakership, and then forge ahead and push their conservative reforms, including a conservative budget. In other words, they can get it together, and they can govern. They'll choose a speaker next week and then get moving on a new conservative course that will stop Biden's big government socialism and its attack on successful businesses, large and small, stop the command and control economy, stop the war against middle-class affordability, and put America first for a change. And that is my riff on their opportunities. All right, joining me now to talk about the GOP getting it back together, stopping socialism, putting America first, we have the great Katie Pavlich, editor at townhall.com and Fox News contributor, and Charlie Hurt, Washington Times opinion editor and Fox News contributor and star of Stage, Screen, and Television at 6 p.m.
He also
this
dances,
week,
I hear.
and doing a great job. Katie, I begin with you. That is my view. They have a terrific opportunity. The liberal media and some conservatives are piling on the Republicans, but there's an opportunity here. What you think?
There is a big opportunity. I like what you're saying about moving forward. There are a number of Republicans who have officially announced today that they want to be in the race for Speaker. Congressman Steve Scalise is one of them. Jim Jordan, who's in charge of the House Judiciary Committee, is another one. And quite frankly, if you look at the way that the speakership vote went down the first time, a lot of people were arguing that Steve Scalise should have been in the running for Speaker in January, not this belated situation. But there are some hard realities about the way the House is functioning now. Despite Kevin McCarthy leaving, that doesn't change the numbers that they have in the House. Republicans have a 5-seat majority. It is a very difficult position to be in. And when you have this vote that you can have one person essentially eject the Speaker, they have some work to do, and whether they will agree to voting to repeal that rule is going to be necessary in order to move forward with the 5-seat majority. But Republicans also have an opportunity to govern more like Nancy Pelosi did. She never had this problem. She wanted to seek power. She got power. She wanted to solidify power for Democrats across the country. And Republicans could learn from that unity as well.
By the way, I offered her my office upstairs. So far, I haven't heard anything back. Whoever the next speaker.
There's a reason Tony Bennett said he left his heart in San Francisco, because it used to be beautiful. San Francisco in the 50s looked like a movie set. Look at that. Clean streets, mom and pop shops, utopia. But today, women are getting pinned under robot cars.
Use heavy rescue tools from our ladder trucks and rescue squad, including the Jaws of Life, to lift the vehicle off of the victim and pull her to safety. She suffered multiple traumatic injuries as a result of this incident. The paramedics stabilized as best they could on scene, and she was transported to the local trauma center.
After Oakland defunded the police, the public is being protected by karate masters. 2 black belts rushed out of a dojo packing Tanbo sticks and scared off 2 armed carjackers. It's incredible. I mean, the Bay isn't really any safer. Look at these guys. Boom, boom. San Francisco now has pirates.
The Oakland estuary is a playground for some and a home for people living on boats. But some say it's now a breeding ground for what is being described as a crime spree by pirates.
I probably know of 15 people that have had their small boats stolen. We came in the morning and saw that the boats were broken into and one of our docks was missing.
These boats are tens of thousands of dollars, and they're just taken. They remove the outboard motor, they cut up the inflatable and let it sink in the estuary. It's a tragedy.
Minnie Madoff's trial starts tomorrow. Remember Minnie? Stole $100 million and bought the midterms for the Democrats. Minnie was so cavalier, he thought, why just rig the midterms when you can rig the general? Michael Lewis reports in his new book that Minnie tried to bribe Trump.
One of the most shocking passages in this book, I thought, came with this revelation that Sam had looked into paying Donald Trump not to run.
That only shocks you if you don't know Sam. Sam's thing, we could pay Donald Trump not to run for president. Like, how much would it take?
Did he get an answer?
So he did get an answer. He was floated. There was a number that was kicking around, and the number that was kicking around when I was talking to Sam about this was $5 billion. Sam was not sure that number came directly from Trump.
Why didn't this happen? Why didn't he follow through?
Well, they were still having these conversations when FTX blew up. So why it didn't happen? He didn't have $5 billion anymore.
So while Democrats were trying to bribe Trump not to run, China was bribing Joe to run. Got it. Joe Concha is a Fox News contributor. Why don't a bunch of billionaires maybe pony up some money to get Joe Biden not to run, Joe?
That may happen given where he's polling at this point, Jesse. And look, if all this is true about Sam Bankman-Fried, and given his massive ego and the fact that he wanted to pay Donald Trump off with other people's money that he stole, that makes the bribing a little easier on the mind. This is yet one more reason why so few people trust elections in this country. And I'm not just talking about Republicans, by the way. After the 2016 race, YouGov does a poll, and it found that 2/3 of Democratic voters believe the Russians not only interfered with that election, but they, quote, tampered with vote totals to get Donald Trump elected, unquote. In 2020, we know what happened with Mark Zuckerberg through Zuckerbucks. Spent more than, $400 million to help finance local elections. Carefully orchestrated attempt to influence the 2020 vote in crucial states like Wisconsin. And, of course, remember in 2020 as well, 51 former intelligence officers who declared Hunter Biden's laptop to be Russian disinformation, all without, examining the evidence. It's like a coroner determining a cause of death on a body that they never saw. So read Sun Tzu, right? The art of war. Every battle is won before it is ever fought. And until all this private money, dark money is out of our elections, voters of all stripes, I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, are going to declare the process rigged when their candidate loses, Jesse.
I have a great idea to get some dough. I'm going to threaten to run for president. And then I'm going to say, you know what? I'll entertain offers. If I won't run for president, $5 billion is a little much of a stretch. I won't run for president for $10 million, Joe. Do you think that's?
I think, given the popularity of the show, you could probably get $1 trillion at this point. I mean, that would be the fear.
This is awash in dirty cash. And remember, the CIA were bribing agents to cover up the lab leak. So the whole thing is just disgusting. Yeah. But like I said, $10 million, and I won't run for president. I'll even do it for $9 million. How about that?
I'll do it for 10,000. No problem.
All right, Joe. Thank you very much.
Fly Eagles.
Meatball played the race card. We saw.
Okay, but I'm going to talk about my book about life after death. That's what I meant. We're going a little serious here for a little bit. Because I talk at this also at ashrams all over the world. And they said it goes along perfectly with their teachings, with the Hindu religion. So I'm involved with a lot of different religions too, because it makes so much sense. But in my work, when you do the past life regressions, in order to do it correctly, you must take the person through the death experience. And a lot of hypnosis classes say, no, no, don't touch that, it's dangerous. It is not, because I've done thousands and thousands of people, and I've had them die in every way imaginable you could think of. And nobody's been harmed if you know what you're doing.